Story 1. The lack of responsibility inherent in childhood. All I needed to do was pick up my socks and finish my math homework. Story 2. Simplicity. The internet has drained the spirit from most people. It has been sad to witness. Back outside I go. Story 3. Honestly, what I miss most from childhood is having nap time scheduled into my day as if it were a job requirement. Can we bring that back? I'm asking for a friend. Story 4. Also, doing somersaults up and down the hilly front yard. Sitting under the forsythia bush in my little cave. Story 5. Grass, orchards, gardens, flowering plants and trees, along with open spaces and time to relax in a meadow or set up a sleeping bag to watch the stars at night. Create a serene environment. Listening to crickets at night adds to the tranquility. Story 6. My relatives and pets who are no longer with us. Waking up carefree on a Saturday morning and knowing it will be a good day of fun with my friends. Story 7. Playing outside involves games such as tag, hide and seek, and freeze tag, along with Filipino games like Langit Lupa and Patintero. Story 8. Not having any responsibilities other than school, not having bills, and not worrying about money. Just being a child. Story 9. Going to the pool during the summer and playing baseball with neighborhood kids using makeshift bases. A cardboard box served as first base, an above-ground sewer manhole was second base, a big rock was third base, and, of course, someone's glove was home plate. Story 10. I miss being surrounded by family the way it used to be. My parents passed away early, and I recently lost my last grandparent. Most of my cousins struggle with substance abuse. One recently took their own life. We used to gather for family dinners at my grandparents' house. We played freeze tag in the yard or went to the store for drinks and candy. Everyone was interested in what others were doing. Most summer days were truly wonderful. Story 11. No phones. We went to an event where you walk around, and everyone was stopping to take pictures instead of just enjoying it. Story 12. Feeling safe, secure, and supported is essential. Unconditional love matters greatly. Life is indeed different after losing parents. Story 13. Literally nothing except being able to eat more than 2% of the things I liked because I did not discover a medical problem until my late teens. Story 14. Morning cartoons on the weekends and afternoon cartoons during the week. It's not just the cartoons, but the entire experience. The meal prepared by my parents created a feeling, one I didn't fully understand at the time, that there was nothing before or after. I was living that moment, both physically and mentally, without any concerns. I'm 40, and I still watch cartoons, especially with my son. For a brief moment, I feel like I'm 8 again. Story 15. Not having to worry about adult responsibilities such as bills and work, and just being able to have fun when you want. Unlike when you are an adult and think, I have a spare hour. What shall I do? Story 16. As a child, I had easy money, time, energy, and healthier joints. I didn't have many responsibilities. I miss a lot, but I am happy to be a young adult today. Story 17. My dad was a drunk, but we spent a lot of time together talking about everything. He was an intelligent man, and I really missed him when he passed away. I was only 10 years old. Story 18. Halo 3 and spending time with friends. Now I socialize maybe once a year, and I think it's starting to make me a little insane. Story 19. When I was little, colors looked a bit different than they do to me now. I miss those shades and hues. Story 20. Lack of pressure and responsibility. Saturday morning cartoons. Summers at my grandparents' shore house in New Jersey. Story 21. Practically everything and everyone changed when I was 9. An earthquake destroyed my hometown and most of my childhood playmates, including my little sister, cousins, and friends, died. After that, there were no games or playmates. Although I was still a child, I no longer had a childhood. Story 22. I miss that experience so much from my life back then. As you get older, everything becomes old news, and it's hard to get excited about anything. Story 23. My near Wolverine level healing factor allows me to heal faster than most when I get hurt, although it used to be much quicker. Story 24. A life without the internet. Maybe that's a predictable answer, but life really was better without it. I know we now have unlimited access to knowledge, but let's be honest, that's not what it's used for. I truly miss the world we had before the digital age. Story 25, The People. Almost all of my grandparents have passed away. We no longer have large family gatherings or holidays because everyone is either too busy or too old to travel much, even when my family and I are the ones traveling to see them. I miss seeing everyone at least once or twice a year in crowded living rooms that spill into dining rooms and kitchens, and outdoors with plates full of food while everyone catches up and chats. There would be games for the children, and everyone seemed happier. Aside from the normal grieving of relatives who have passed on, I find myself mourning the lost connection with family that I once had. Story 26. Not knowing or worrying about what the next day would bring. Being free and lacking true responsibility. Simply living each day as it came. There was a time in my life when I was happy just being myself. I was able to escape the stress of others' needs. I didn't have money, and that was okay. I enjoyed being unattached to anything. I could do what I wanted, only needing to take care of myself. Story 27. The carefree nature of being a child, particularly spending time with my older brother. Story 28. Being able to show enthusiasm and genuine joy for everyday life without being criticized for it. You need to grow up. Wow, you're kind of childish, etc. Story 29. The only thing I miss from my childhood is the people from that time who have passed away. My childhood was quite unusual. I prefer being an adult. Story 30. When I was young, until I was 16, I didn't work full-time during the summer. I did mow lawns to make some money, but I decided when to do that. I enjoyed months when I could hang out with friends at the local pool, mall, or arcade without worrying about bills or taxes. Story 31. Pretty much everything. Free time allows you to engage in activities you enjoy instead of fulfilling responsibilities. Even in my 50s, I still feel the same. I can do what I want when I want for the most part, and I feel like I have endless energy. Story 32. Having nothing to do. Being able to wake up in the morning and just lie in bed for a while thinking, okay, what do I want to do today? Story 33. Coming back from school with my best friend and receiving $10 from my mom. We went to buy candy and chocolate. We just laughed and talked, not thinking about anything. What a wonderful feeling it was. Story 34. A life without the internet. While I love the technology we have today, it was more freeing. There was no doom scrolling, and setting time aside to play games was something special. Story 35. My grandmother and childhood friends spent summers outside with no goal or objective other than to explore and play. Story 36. Honestly, I don't remember much. I am happy to have left certain people from that time behind. Story 37. Summer vacation includes holidays, camping with family, playing with friends, visiting grandparents, and enjoying time without responsibilities. Story 38. My mother passed away when I was 13, after being ill for over 4 years prior. I am now 45, but the loss remains very present. Story 39. My imagination and sense of wonder allow me to be creative without the overwhelming need for perfection. Story 40. The trees I could climb to the very top. There was a massive eastern yellow cedar that had outgrown part of the forest. From the top, I could see the entire valley, a view I had never witnessed before. Felt as if I had climbed to another world. Story 41. Free time. The idea of having 3 months off each year with absolutely no responsibilities feels like an ancient legend, a fairy tale. Story 42. I go to a place every day where I can interact with many people my age for hours. I want that today. I haven't met anyone lately. Building relationships and friendships is not happening. Story 43. The sense of awe and amazement from experiencing the ocean for the first time, witnessing snow for the first time, or encountering giant creatures in the wild for the first time. Story 44. The free Huey helicopter rides on the 4th of July and the complete safety and freedom of growing up on military bases. Story 45. Life before smartphones, when people would have conversations with others about various topics just to pass the time. Now you're at a bus stop or a train station, and everyone is staring down like zombies. Story 46. My grandmother passed away when I was 6, and I recently realized that I cannot remember what her voice sounded like anymore. Story 47. Being present in the moment and not thinking about anything else. I lived on my grandparents' farm, climbing in the barn to find new kittens, taking naps in the straw in the barn. I would read comics up in the big magnolia tree during the heat of summer to catch a breeze. I played in the shallow creek to cool off and fished in the shade by the pond. Riding our bikes 5 miles to get a 10-cent ice cream cone felt totally worth it. I read comics in the sagebrush field on a cold, sunny winter weekend because the sagebrush would break the wind and keep us warm on the ground. Story 48. The feeling I had of family has evolved. At 29 years old, I now understand completely that the idea I once had in my mind of what family is nothing like what I have experienced since I was born. Story 49. Neighborhood friends. I wish my son had friends in his neighborhood, but it mostly consists of older people. They are very nice, but I wish he had more friends. Story 50. Being able to sit in a cafe or restaurant without hearing someone playing loud videos or sharing their music with everyone. Story 51. My aunt had a farm. My grandparents lived in a double-wide at the beach. My sister and I spent our summers a week at a time at both spots. We had fresh vegetables and horse riding and got to help drive the tractors. I was 8, driving a full-size pickup truck along the back lane to get hay from the farm next door. At the beach, we went out on the pontoon boat fishing and crabbing. We flew kites and rode bikes all day. I went to work with my grandfather and helped grab drinks while he was working on things at the trailer. It was fun then, and as I talk to my son about it now, I realize he'll never have any idea what it was like. No internet, no video games, just kids being kids. Story 52. I really miss believing in Santa. I kept thinking about this around Christmas time. I believed until I was 12, which is quite old, but I think I was just hanging on to that idea and figured it out when I was 9 or 10. Story 53. Politics can be boring. I miss the liberal and conservative parties arguing over whether to increase public school funding, not over whether children should have the right to feel safe in their schools. Story 54. The 1980s and before the internet, and yes, I know that I'm on the internet. But believe me, I wouldn't miss it if it were gone. Story 55. Namiss ko ang mga lugar sa amin na lagi kong pinupuntahan, mula tanghali hanggang hapon. Tapos, ang dami kong kaibigan noon na kasama sa galaan. Ngunit ngayon wala na. Story 56. Waking up on Sundays with no school and going to my friend's house to play after eating breakfast. Story 57. How oblivious I was to the real world as a child. Back when my only worry was hoping I would be able to catch the newest episode of Pokemon on Kids WB. Story 58. Playing outside with the neighbors until nighttime, then coming home to a slipper ready to give you a good spanking. Story 59. Just being able to run around outside and play. My back and neck are in pain, and I am sometimes scared to sneeze. Story 60. How carefree it was with all the free time. I loved my family because I did not know or understand everything that was going on. Story 61. I miss my math homework and how I used to run and play with my friends. Even though running businesses is my passion, there is no comparison to childhood memories. Story 62. Everything seemed exciting. Having children of my own now, I have learned to slow down and notice the small things that make life beautiful again. Story 63. My dad's cooking. My sister does well at making his dishes, but it's just not the same without him. Story 64. It's a nostalgic opinion, but I miss the time when there were no cell phones. If you left home, you were out of contact with everyone unless you visited someone else's house. It was wonderful. Story 65. Spending a weekend with my grandparents, enjoying Fruit Loops for breakfast and watching Star Trek reruns on television. Story 66. Climbing. I was fearless as a child and would climb anything. Now I am terrified of falling, and heights scare me. Story 67. Going to bed feeling completely safe with all my needs met, and the only stressors being math tests and which team I will be on for kickball at recess. Story 68. The innocent era we grew up in allowed us to truly be kids. There was no internet, no cell phones, and no social media. I wish my children could have experienced that as well. It just isn't the same. Story 69. Good parents. Mine became increasingly childish and selfish as they aged. I'm estranged from all of them now. Story 70. My mental world before phones and the internet involved creating Star Wars-like stories in my head as I walked down the street. Story 71. The feeling of happiness and carelessness when your only problem was getting home in time to watch your favorite cartoon series on television or managing to get a second piece of cake on Daddy's birthday. Story 72. My uncle's stories about the muscle cars they drove, such as older Corvettes, Roadrunners, Cudas, and Novas, are filled with life lessons and wisdom. They sold me my first classic car, a 1965 Thunderbird. I got my driver's permit and driver's license in that car. My first backseat adventure was in that sweet car. Story 73. I want to get deep and philosophical, but the genuine answer is somewhat silly. This specific candy from my childhood. Growing up in rural England, I had a sweet shop on the corner of my road that sold gummy snails with shells that had a jelly-like consistency. I absolutely adored them. We moved away, and I have never been able to find them since. All of my happiest childhood memories seem to include those snail gummies. Story 74. The lack of responsibility, the scope of imagination, and the innocence. Just having no idea how profoundly messed up the world is. I am so grateful that I had the happy and protected childhood I did, but I truly miss those days. Also, Christmas was so much more magical when I genuinely believed Santa was real. Story 75. Everything in the fridge seemed to last longer. Vegetables always stayed fresh, and milk never spoiled. Now it seems like just an hour after being in the fridge, my lettuce wilts. Story 76. Not experienced death or grief yet. The feeling of total happiness and relaxation in the summer on the countryside is something I miss every day. Story 77. My little brother is 10 years younger than I am, and I loved when he was small. I also enjoyed living behind my best friend. We spent a lot of time together. Story 78. Living in the 1990s was great. What I miss is riding a bike with friends and heading to a big forest. I really miss going to the arcades and playing cool games. I miss playing Nintendo and Sega Genesis back in the day. Honestly, I just miss life in the 1990s. There were some really cool television shows back then. I would use a VHS recorder to capture my favorite shows and watch them endlessly. There was no internet, and my family didn't have a computer in the 1990s. I had no interest in computers back then. All I wanted to do was go rollerblading and try to do tricks. If I could go back in time, it would be to the 1980s, not the 1990s. I never had the chance to experience life in the 1980s. I was a baby. I am a 1990s baby. Story 79. The sheer uninterrupted joy of the natural world filled my childhood. We lived on hundreds of acres that backed up to thousands of swamps, forests, lakes, and meadows. I wandered around all day without seeing another person. Each day, I gazed at sweeping fields and stands of white birch. It was an idyllic childhood in that regard. Now, I live on a small lot in a suburban area of a large urban center. I have to spend a lot of time hiking elsewhere to stay sane, but it is not the same as growing up in the wild. Story 80. Social media, once filled with cat videos and lighthearted content, is now dominated by bots and extremist propaganda. It is no longer as enjoyable as it once was. Story 81. Not having a financial burden that follows you everywhere you go. I truly consider the implications of money before making any decision. Story 82. Summer nights playing in the backyard with friends were enjoyable. The high school marching band was also a great experience. Story 83. My family consists of just my dad and me now. My grandparents are gone, as well as my mother and brother. It's difficult. Story 84. My parents, my home, all my dogs, childhood friends, sledding on the hill in my backyard, bike riding, summer camp, and feeling loved and cared for. Story 85. The ready, pain-free use of all my major joints is something I appreciate. I also miss doing big yawns where I stretch my arms above my head. I haven't been able to do that since I was a teenager. Story 86. Summer at my grandmother's house, near a lake, was one of the best times of my life. I rode bikes, caught frogs and crawdads, laid in fields getting chiggers, climbed trees with my cousins, played kickball, and ran races, often winning because I was the fastest on the block. We played ding-dong ditch, rode in the bed of my uncle's pickup truck, and fed deer and birds with my grandmother. We also went to the drive-in movies and celebrated birthdays at McDonald's. I miss everything. Story 87. The green carpet landscape of central New York. At other times it is white, gray, red, yellow, or brown. Story 88. I was reflecting on a fond memory from today. My father was barbecuing on the back porch in the middle of summer, listening to the Mets game on the radio. My mother, father, brother, and I sat together as a family, enjoying hot dogs and hamburgers straight off the grill. We were surrounded by the warm colors of the sunset, humidity, iced tea, and love. Life is short. These little moments mean everything. Story 89. Order and calm. As Generation X, we had it made. We did things and we learned things. It was a unique time when you could call a spade because it was one, and the world was much smaller. A thug was a thug and everyone knew it and agreed. That's what I miss. Story 90. When I was younger, my family would go to my paternal grandparents' house every Saturday morning for breakfast. There would be made-from-scratch biscuits, gravy, bacon, sausage, fried eggs, and occasionally pancakes. While we cooked, my dad and uncles would do whatever needed to be done around the house. Us cousins would play together, enjoy our younger uncle's Nintendo console in the basement, and then disband to go our separate ways with our parents and siblings. My family would visit the outdoor flea market across town where my maternal grandparents set up a booth to sell incense, later puppies, cotton candy, crafts, and other items. Occasionally, my paternal grandmother's siblings and her mother, our great-grandmother, would drive up from Atlanta to visit for about a week. While they were there, we would go to my grandparents' house every night for dinner. Some nights we'd have pulled pork. Occasionally, my granny would go to Checkers and buy dozens of hamburgers for us to eat, get family meals from Captain D's, or go to Ryan's buffet. I remember when Big Macs went on sale and my granny bought dozens, bringing them to the house for us cousins, aunts, and uncles to enjoy for dinner while we played Yahtzee and ate ice cream. In the late 90s, my aunt and two cousins moved to North Carolina, so we didn't get to see them as much. My other cousins got older and didn't want to spend as much time with our family as we used to. My great-grandmother passed away, and my great-aunts and uncles no longer came to visit us. My grandma developed health problems and passed in 2002, which was also when my brother graduated and joined the military. The cousin closest to me in age got into a car accident in 2004 and died. A few months later, another cousin lost his infant daughter, and we became the family that only saw one another at funerals. I didn't realize when I was young that all of those get-togethers would one day end. Story 91. Childhood is often overrated. Parents have significant control over their children's lives. Children often can't make their own choices and must ask for permission to do anything. They have to attend school, which can be quite challenging, and many wish there would be greater acknowledgement of the shortcomings of public education over the years. If teachers want to receive higher pay, they could start by making schools feel less restrictive. Additionally, there is always the expectation for children to thrive. This constant pressure to succeed and the relentless optimism for the future can be overwhelming. Story 92. I grew up in Africa and was privileged to experience open spaces with great weather all year round. I miss that. Story 93. My city, Los Angeles, my home near Franklin Avenue, my friends from various parts of the world, and my teachers were significant parts of my life. I really liked most of them and had a crush on my beautiful first-grade teacher. They were people I could look up to. After my parents divorced, my mother moved my brothers and me to suburban Massachusetts, and everything changed for the worse. I had a favorite restaurant in Los Angeles, Tepra Thai on Melbourne Avenue. Thai food changed my life for the better, and I remain passionate about it, along with other Asian cuisines. to this day. In suburban Massachusetts, most people seem to prefer pizza or subs, which has physical consequences for them. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.